Imagine this. You stroll into Roxboro Road Garda Station in Limerick, ready for a calm morning, maybe a quick tea, maybe complaining about the weather like a normal person. And then you find out detectives are raiding your superintendent's office. And not for a violent case, not for drugs, not for organized crime. No, for allegedly helping people dodge road traffic penalties. Only in Ireland could a raid start because someone's speeding ticket had too many friends in high places. At the center of today's chaos is Eamon O'Neill, a retired Garda superintendent in his late 50s. Alongside him are Sergeant Anne-Marie Hassett, Sergeant Michelle Leahy, Garda Tom McGlinchey, and Garda Colm Geary. 5 Garda members, 39 charges, 1 courtroom in Limerick, and a story that feels like a detective show where the detectives accidentally became the plot. So picture this. It is early morning in mid-May of 2019. The sun is barely up. Most people are still trying to convince themselves that porridge is a real breakfast. And meanwhile, Detective Inspector Cormac Brennan from the Garda National Bureau of Criminal Investigation walks into Roxboro Road Garda Station with a warrant in his hand and the kind of expression that says, "Yeah, this is really happening." He and a colleague head straight for Superintendent O'Neill's office. This is where the first twist lands. Instead of Garda members raiding a suspect's home, it is Garda members raiding another Garda member's workplace. The mood instantly flips from morning shift to, "Lads, why are the detectives here with boxes?" And here is the detail that shook everyone. The search lasted 5.5 hours. That is longer than most Irish family dinners and with just as much tension. Detectives went through drawers, shelves, files, cabinets, all of it collecting items that would later become exhibits in a criminal trial. Inside Superintendent O'Neill's office, detectives started lifting items like they were clearing out a storage unit that nobody wanted to claim. By the end of the search, they had seized at least 24 exhibits, and every single one told a different part of the story. There were 2 summons sheets, 3 mobile phones, a laptop, a computer hard drive, a USB key, a laptop bag, a diary, even a bank receipt linked to a debit card. If this sounds organized, hold on, the next part feels like detective bingo. Among the items was a sheet of paper with a username and password written on it, an intelligence report from the National Criminal Intelligence Unit that had nothing to do with the case, an unrelated murder file, and a complaint letter about a completely different individual. Basically, the kind of random mix that makes investigators stare at each other like, what exactly was going on in here? The search ends, the boxes are sealed, and the raid quietly shifts to phase 2. A few hours after searching the office, detectives headed to Superintendent O'Neill's home. It was early morning again, just after 6, and the place was shared with his partner, Sergeant Anne-Marie Hassett, who is also one of the accused. Another warrant, another search, another round of "what are we going to find this time?" And here comes one of the biggest twists in the entire story. During the search, detectives opened a wardrobe and found a safe. Inside the safe were 4 mobile phones. In total, across the home, Gardaí seized 8 phones. 8. That is not a household. That is a small electronics shop. Some phones belonged to Superintendent O'Neill, some to Sergeant Hassett, and some required advanced forensic analysis. One of O'Neill's phones had to be sent all the way to a major digital forensics company in London for extraction, where a specialist produced a full report for the investigation. For a case about road traffic interference, the number of phones alone had half the courtroom raising an eyebrow. Back in Ireland, once the phones, laptops, and documents were collected, everything was handed over to the Garda National Bureau of Criminal Investigation. That unit specializes in internal Garda wrongdoing, so when they get involved, you know things have moved past miscommunication. One of the key forensic witnesses was Jonathan Chan, a mobile phone analyst working with a well-known technology company in London. He told the court through a video link that he extracted data from a phone linked to Superintendent O'Neill and generated a full analysis report for investigators. No speculation, no drama, just verified digital forensics sent straight back to the Gardaí. At the same time, detectives interviewed witnesses inside the station. They met with the head of the Limerick Garda Division, Chief Superintendent Jerry Roach, who handed over even more documents. One by one, each piece of paperwork and each phone log slowly added layers to the investigation. And here is the moment that made the public sit up. Despite earlier suspicions that confidential information might have been passed to outside parties, no charges were ever brought in relation to that part. The only charges that reached court were the alleged attempts to interfere with traffic cases. Now we get to the backbone of the case, the charges. Between the five accused, prosecutors laid out 39 counts of allegedly trying to pervert the course of justice, all linked to road traffic matters, no violent crimes, no gangland connections, just traffic cases that, according to the state, somehow kept getting sorted. Prosecuting senior counsel Carl Hanaho told the jury something that became the anchor of the whole trial. In every one of these alleged incidents, the common denominator was Superintendent O'Neill. In other words, if you follow the paper trail on each questionable cancellation, it always circles back to him. Here is how the charges break down. Sergeant Anne-Marie Hassett, Garda Tom McGlinchey, and Garda Combe Geary each face counts alleging they contacted colleagues about fixed charge penalty notices with the intention of having them terminated. Not reduced, not appealed, terminated. Sergeant Michelle Leahy faces 2 charges connected to her role as a court presenter. Prosecutors say she applied to have 2 summonses withdrawn or struck out, knowing it was improper. All 5 firmly deny everything, insisting that nothing illegal happened, that proper procedures existed at the time to review and cancel notices, and that the accusations stretch ordinary internal processes into something criminal. By this point in the trial, the jury had heard hours of evidence about phones, files, summons sheets, and early morning raids. But the part everyone kept circling back to was the atmosphere inside Roxboro Road Garda Station on that morning in May. Detectives arrived before most people had finished their tea. Doors opened. Uniforms paused mid-conversation. Officers who usually spent their day handling public complaints watched detectives search their superintendent's office for more than 5 hours straight. This was not a situation where someone quietly resigned and the matter disappeared. This was a full-scale internal investigation unfolding inside the building where these people worked every single day. You could almost feel the tension in the statements, whispers in the corridor, confused looks from junior officers, and that shared Irish instinct of, do not ask questions, just pretend this is normal. But nothing about it was normal. In a police force, the moment detectives start investigating other detectives, the entire structure shakes, and in this case, it shook for hours. As the investigation deepened, a quiet domino effect began. One search led to another. One document led to 5 more. One questioned witness opened the door to an entirely new angle. Detectives from the Garda National Bureau of Criminal Investigation did not just stop at offices and phones. They traced conversations, cross-checked case files, and analyzed patterns in how road traffic matters were being handled in the Limerick division. The implication was subtle but heavy. If road traffic notices could be influenced, then every file had to be treated as a potential lead. That meant supervisors, presenters, clerks, and anyone involved in district court paperwork suddenly had to answer detailed questions they never expected to hear. And here comes the twist that hits hardest. Even though some suspicions first pointed toward information being disclosed to outside parties, no charges about that were ever brought. The investigation narrowed down to traffic cases only. That surprised many people following the trial because it meant the truth might be less sensational than rumors suggested, but also more systematic than anyone wanted to admit. Eventually, after years of investigation, interviews, digital forensics, and internal reviews, the entire case reached Limerick Circuit Criminal Court. A jury of 8 men and 4 women was sworn in. Their job was not simple. They had to decide whether ordinary Garda processes were used properly or twisted into something else. The state's position was firm. They said citizens contacted Superintendent O'Neill about penalty points. They said he, in turn, reached out to colleagues to have fixed charge penalty notices terminated. They said Sergeant Leahy asked the court to withdraw summonses improperly. The defense position was equally clear. They argued the alleged contacts were normal parts of Garda work. They said cancellations could happen through established procedures. They insisted no one intended to interfere with justice. So now you have a courtroom full of senior officers serving Garda members, forensic specialists, and a jury trying to sort out whether this was corruption or confusion. And unlike a television drama, nobody gets to fast forward the boring parts. By the end of the evidence, the courtroom had heard it all. 5 hours of office searches, 8 phones in one house, unrelated intelligence files turning up in drawers, quiet calls between colleagues, and 2 very different explanations for every action taken. The prosecution said the system was bent. The defense said the system was misunderstood. The jury had to decide which version made sense. And here is the final twist, the one Ireland kept talking about. If the people responsible for enforcing the rules can make summonses vanish, even in small cases, then the real question is not about one superintendent or 4 Garda members. The real question is the one nobody wants to say out loud. If the system bends this easily, was it ever straight to begin with?